Hello Nidorinas and Nidorinos, I'm KingNido, and today is the Cinnabar Blazes going up against the Melemele Rumbles. And as these two sides have a look at their opening hands, let's have a look at this tale of the tape where the Cinnabar Blazes are one of the few sides who have been able to hold a successful record over the Melemele Rumbles, taking them down last season when the Rumbles only lost 2 series in the whole regulation season. But both these sides are in contention to make it into victory road. So with that said, let us know in the comments below who you think's going to win this matchup. Will it be the fire decks? Will it be the fighting decks? Let's go!
3, 2, 1, go!
And going first, it is that rapid spin kick deck for the Melemele Rumbles, moving the Riolu into the active spot. It is the Heat Rotom from that Flint Lockwood deck of the Cinnabar Blazes going into their active spot. Now, both these sides only have one basic Pokemon, but they've both got a Pokeball, so we can guarantee they will get a second basic Pokemon, and they will be able to get something onto their bench, being the second Riolu for the Melemele Rumbles. Now, they can't generate an energy on this first turn. However, we do see that Lucario, that fighting coach ability in hand for the Rumbles. They've also got the Giant Cape, but for now they do send it over to the Blazers, who pull their Rocky Helmet, which could deter the Rumbles from going on the offensive. But first they're going to play the Pokeball to get the Slugma in hand as well. We can see the Santa Scorch, but no Sizzlipede just yet, as the Slugma is moved onto the bench. They do get that Rocky Helmet onto the Heat Rotom. It does require 2 energy though to go on the offensive, but they've got that X speed. They could have switched that Slugma into the active spot and gone on the offensive, but for now have decided against it as the Rumbles pull that Pokemon communication. And I do not think they want to send that Lucario back into the deck just yet, but they are going to move it onto the benched Riolu, it looks like, and that is exactly what they do. So it's going to boost the damage that fighting type Pokemon do by an extra 20. That's where that fighting coach ability comes into play. So they wanted to go on the offensive with this Riolu here, also playing that Giant Cape onto the Riolu to boost its health up to 20. It goes with the jab, 40 damage onto the Rotom, so that Rocky Helmet offsets the Giant Cape. But this is still a very good start for the Rumbles as the Blazers pull their second Heat Rotom. They've got the Team Rocket Grunt if they want to try and get energy off of the opposing active Pokemon, but the Heat Breath here from Heat Rotom, and it does flip their heads, so they actually get the 60 damage. They will be able to take this Riolu off the board. Good thing they didn't play that Team Rocket Grunt and waste that card, because they've just taken the first point here in game 1 of our best of 3 series. And as we always say in these matches, regardless of the outcome of the first 2 matches, we still play that third game because it counts toward our leaderboard. As the Rumbles pull their second Pokeball, they play it immediately to get the Flamigo out of their deck. Now that does require 2 energy to go for the double kick. Each kick does 50 damage here, as it is 2 coin flips, but for now they are setting up that Lucario getting its first energy. The Blazers pull their Pokemon Center Lady, and they play that immediately to restore the health of that Heat Rotom up to 70. And that does take it out of range from that Lucario, taking it off the board. The Slugma getting its first energy. Another Heat Breath from this Rotom, but unfortunately this time it does only get the tail, so 30 damage onto the Lucario, because fortunately it's not a metal type Lucario, because then it would have been taking additional damage surely. As they pull their own Pokemon Center Lady, do the Rumbles, restoring the health of the Lucario back up to 100, and this fighting coach ability does work on itself, so the Submarine Blow will be doing 60 damage to the Heat Rotom, bringing it down to only 10 health. That Rocky Helmet damage though does do 20 back to the Lucario. And the Blazers now pulling their Professor's Research, which they do play immediately, get an additional 2 cards out of their deck. They get the Cyrus, they get the Potion, they can restore the health of the Heat Rotom, but it won't help out very much. They move their second Heat Rotom onto the bench, getting a first energy onto that one as well. And they do consider playing that Potion, but instead they're going to play the X Speed. This will bring the retreat cost of the Heat Rotom down to 0. They don't want to drop a point. They're going to retreat that Heat Rotom, bringing the Slugma into the active spot. It can go for this Flare, will do 20 damage to the Lucario, but on top of that, it has 70 health, so the Lucario can also not take out the Slugma. And the Rumbles do pull a Fampi. They do immediately move that onto the bench. We've seen the capabilities of that Donphan when it gets on a roll, especially alongside one of those Lucario. It can do up to 140 damage. They play the Potion onto the Lucario as Flamigo did just get its first energy. And another Submarine Blow, now bringing Slugma down to only 10 health. Now Slugma has a 2 energy retreat cost as the Sizzlipede has been pulled for the Blazes. They can start trying to prepare for this Center Scorch to come online if they so choose. And they are hovering that energy over the Sizzlipede. They do decide to go with that, and they're going to play the Team Rocket Grunt. They need to flip a heads to start off with. It will continue until they flip a tails, which unfortunately is straight away, so no energy will be taken off of the Riolu. And now the Blazers need to think about how they want to approach this. There's not much they can do, so they just go with the Flare onto Lucario, another 20 damage as the Hitmontop now being pulled for the Rumbles. Again, they've got that Pokemon communication in hand. It can allow them to move a Pokemon that they've got in hand back into their deck and replace it with a random Pokemon from their deck, but they continue with the Submarine Blows from Lucario onto the Slugma, taking it off the board, and the Rumbles get their first point here in Game 1. The Blazers opting to go with their full health Heat Rotom in the active spot as they pull the Magcargo one turn too late. They do get an energy onto the Heat Rotom. They need to flip a heads with this Heat Breath and they can take Lucario off the board, but unfortunately they flip the tails, so Lucario is safe from being eliminated. The Rumbles fortunately aren't a point behind once again, and the Donphan has been pulled for the Rumbles. They can get a second energy onto it here as it is brought online, evolving that Phanpy. And the X speed is also played by the Rumbles. They don't want to drop the Lucario. They're well aware. It brings its retreat cost down to 1. They move the Flamigo into the active spot. It has 80 health, so it can outlast the damage from the Heat Rotom, even if they flip a heads. But the double kick, they need to flip 2 heads. They get the first one. They don't get the second one though, so it only does 50 damage. This is good for the Blazers because this will buy them a bit of time. It does do 70 damage again thanks to that fighting coach ability. The second Center Scorch has been pulled for the Cinnabar Blazes. Second energy onto that Sizzlipede as well, and the Center Scorch is now online. It has 130 health, and they're going to play their Cyrus as well. This will drag Lucario back onto the board, which means this Heat Rotom can take it out, get in their second point, and they don't have to deal with that fighting coach ability regardless of the tail split. They still get 30 damage onto the Lucario. The Rumbles thought that the Lucario was safe, but the Blazers have taken their second point and are 1 point away from taking Game 1. Now the Rumbles do opt to move the Flamigo back into the active spot. Not even the Donphan can outlast a Fire Blast from that Center Scorch on the bench. The second Lucario has been pulled, but that second Riolu is already in the discard pile. They do play that Pokemon communication, sending the Hitmontop back in. They do get the Flamigo once again. So they've got 2 Flamigos now, 1 in hand, 1 in the active spot. They get a Tails on that first double kick. They get a Tails on the second one. They do nothing to the Heat Rotom. They're unsuccessful in taking it off the board. This is not good for the Rumbles as the Blazers do pull their second Magcargo. They still have another turn to set up this Center Scorch. It's got its third of 4 required energy. Another Heat Breath though. And another Tails. It will only do 30 damage to the Flamigo. So it does come back over to the Rumbles. They do pull a Hitmontop once again. They've generated those fighting energies, and they are going to retreat the Flamigo. With this rolling spin, the Donphan will do 60 damage, and on every consecutive turn, it will do 120. And that's why they want that Lucario on the bench, so it can do 140. The Donphan has taken the second point for the Rumbles, but that doesn't matter now because the Blazers move their Center Scorch into the active spot. It does 130 damage. They pull the Giant Cape, but they're only worried with getting the energy onto the Center Scorch and taking this Game 1 with a massive Fire Blast to take the Donphan off the board, and the Blazers have taken Game 1 in this best of 3 series as they are looking to do what they did last season and take down the Melemele Rumbles. As we have our first table reset, if you're enjoying what you're seeing, please leave a like, share, subscribe, help this series grow for many sets to come. As the Rumbles are using their Cobble Breakers deck, they are going first and they move the Hitmonchan into the active spot. They've got the Machop that they're moving onto the bench. They've got the Machoke already in hand. The Blazers going with their Fire Spit Island deck, moving the Stoke Magma onto the bench. They've got 2 Vulpix in hand, one of them going onto the bench. They've got 2 Pokeballs. They can thin their deck very quickly. The Rumbles also having a Pokeball in hand, but here we go in our Game 2. The Rumbles looking to take it to a game 3. The Blazers want to lock up this series straight away and then potentially get a clean sweep as the Monotype is pulled thanks to the Pokeball of the Rumbles, and they immediately move it onto the bench. They've got that second Hitmonchan in hand now, plus the Mars that can cause the Blazers to have to shuffle their hand back into their deck, and what they do is they pull the amount that is the same as the remaining amount of points they need. It always feels like a mouthful to say out loud, and they currently have 3 points remaining, so that Mars isn't as beneficial as the Blazers do get a Heatran from their first Pokeball, a Magma from their second Pokeball, and they've got the Pokemon communication, so they can send a Pokemon back into their deck and get a random one back out. They do get a Fire Energy onto this Stoke Magma, and if they do play it, it generates another energy onto it as they hope to get a Magmortar onto it. It requires 4 energy. They do send it back over to the Rumbles, who get their own Pokemon communication as well. They are going to get the Machoke online that does that pummel, but it's also the Machamp. If they can get 4 energy onto it, it only requires 2 to do 70 damage, but it can do 120 if it has 4 fighting type energy on it. With their Pokemon communication as well, they send the Hitmonchan back in and get the Medicham out of their deck, so that is now online. That Kick Shot only requires 1 energy, and that is where they opt to move that energy as well instead of setting up the Machoke. A very interesting play by the Rumbles as the Blazers do pull their Cyrus, making it so no Pokemon that has taken damage, even if they're on the bench of the Rumbles, are safe. They are going to play their own Pokemon communication now, sending the Vulpix back into their deck, and they get a Ninetales out, and this plays a very good draw because they've got that Vulpix already on the bench. They can evolve it, and that is exactly what they're going to do. That Flamethrower can do 90 damage for 2 energy, but it does have to discard an energy when it does so. As the Stoke continues from the Magma, it's got its 3rd energy, but they still need the Magmortar. The Iono has been pulled for the Rumbles as well. It can cause both teams to have to shuffle their hands into their deck, replacing the amount of cards that they shuffle in. However, they retreat the Hitmonchan. This is why they got the energy onto the Medicham on the last turn. They want to go for the Kick Shot. They want to take the Magma off the board. This could be a game changer early on, and they get the heads. The Magma, 3 energy discard pile as the Rumbles take the first point here in game 2, and that is massive after all that setup that the Blazers just did, because Medicham has 100 health. This Ninetales that's now in the active sweat still can't even do enough damage to take it off the board, but they have just pulled the Rocky Helmet, which they are going to get onto the Ninetales. They want to make the Melemele Rumbles reluctant to go on the offensive with this Medicham. And before they go on the offensive, they do move the Magma onto the bench, and there it is, 90 damage onto the Medicham. They do have to discard an energy from the Ninetales as the Rumbles pull the Giant Cape. This is a fantastic card. This is exactly what they need, because this will keep the Medicham safe if they're successful on landing the Kick Shot. If they flip a Tails, it won't do anything to the Ninetales, so this could be another opportunity of how this will impact this game. They are going for the Kick Shot after getting an energy onto the Machoke, and they get another heads, so they do get 80 damage onto the Ninetales. It will only have 10 health remaining, and with that 20 damage from the Rocky Helmet, Medicham also only has 10 health remaining. The Blazers have finally pulled a Magmortar, but it is a little late for that Stoke Magma that is in the discard pile. However, they can start setting it up. They're thinking about how they want to approach this, and they're not going for the elimination of the Medicham. Instead, they get an energy onto the Heatran. Very interesting choice, because they can retreat this Medicham. It is only a 1 energy retreat cost. As they pull another Machoke, they get that second energy onto the benched Machoke here. And they do retreat the Medicham. It can go for the pummel. It will do 30 damage. This Ninetales is not safe, but if they flip their heads, it would have done an additional 30 damage. Unfortunately, they flip the tails, but regardless, they take their second point. They are 1 point away from taking this to a game 3. The Blazers are still yet to take a point. Now, they have got energy onto that Heatran. With that Rage and Mad Strike, it only does 40 damage, but if the Heatran has taken damage, it does an additional 40, so it can do 80 damage. And the Blazers have pulled their second Vulpix. They've still got that Magmortar in hand, and they're going to play the Cyrus. They're going to ensure that they get at least 1 point in this game, because they are taking this Medicham off the board with the Rage and Mad Strike. But before they do that, they move the Vulpix onto the bench here. And there it is, that 40 damage onto the Medicham. which again could be another questionable choice because they didn't get 40 damage onto the Machoke. That does buy the Rumbles a bit of time, especially if they are able to pull up a Machamp. And they're thinking about what they want to do. They're going to move the Hitmonchan into the active spot, keeping the Machoke safe on the bench as the second Metachamp has been pulled for the Rumbles, and they are going to play the Iono, knowing that the Blazers only have one card in hand. They've got 3. They'll get 3 cards back. The Blazers get back their Magmortar, but the Rocky Helmet, the Machop, and the Team Rocket Grunt are pulled for the Rumbles. Now, they can't use the Team Rocket Grunt because they've already used a supporter card on this turn, but they could have used the Rocky Helmet, but they don't want that Heatran to have any damage on it to boost the potential of that Rage and Mad Strike. The Blazers pulling their second Ninetales here. They do get an energy onto it because they do evolve that Vulpix and Rage and Mad Strike on to the Hitmonchan, bringing it down to 50 health. The second Hitmonchan has been pulled for the Rumbles once again, and they're thinking about how they want to approach this. They can use that Team Rocket Grunt to try and get the energy off of the Heatran, and that is exactly what they're going to do. But they need to start with the heads and get as many as they can, and unfortunately they get the tails straight away, so there's no energy taken off of the Heatran. There is a 4th energy placed onto the Machoke, but they need the Machamp. And the Blazers do pull their Pokemon communication, and now they decide to get that Magmortar online. And they're thinking about where they want to move this fire energy, opting to go with it on the Ninetales. They can't retreat the Heatran, it is a 3 energy retreat cost. The Rage and Mad Strike bringing Hitmonchan to only 10 health remaining. The Rumbles though, they're going to pull the Machamp, and it is all over for the Blazers. They've already got 4 energy on the Machamp. This Power Press can do 120 damage. They get the 1 energy onto the Hitmonchan so they can retreat it, and with this Power Press they can take this Heatran off the board. They still get the Rocky Helmet onto it, which is very questionable. I'm not sure they realize how good of a position they are in right now, but with this Power Press, 120 damage, and the Rumbles have locked up game 2, as we will be taking this to a game 3 decider. The Rumbles trying to avenge last season, the Blazers battling it out for that top spot on the leaderboard. But here we go, our final table reset, and it is the Blazers who will be going first, and they are going to be using that Flameathon deck up against the Rumbles Grand Underground deck. They do move the Ponyta into the active spot with their Paldean Tauros on the bench. They Hitmonlee into the active spot for the Rumbles as their only basic Pokemon in hand. But here we go, our game 3 decider with the Blazers going first. They pull the Houndoom here. Our Ponyta can't go on the offensive just yet, but with that said, they do move the Rocky Helmet onto it to try and make that Hitmonlee reluctant to do any damage. Again, that recoil 20 as the Rumbles pull the Cranidos. They've got the Rampardos in hand. They are going to play a Pokeball. They need their Skull Fossil though if they want to get that Rampardos online. They play the Professor's Research after getting the Hitmonlee. They get the Gligar, they get the second Rampardos. They've got a Gliscor in hand as well, so they are going to move that Gligar onto the bench. Fortunately for the Rumbles, all of their Pokemon except for the Regirock in this Grand Underground deck require more than 1 energy as they kick 30 damage onto Ponyta, bringing its health down to 30, 20 recoil onto the Hitmonlee as well thanks to that Rocky Helmet. The Blazers do pull their second Ponyta as well. They've got the 2 potions in hand, so they can use one of these, which is exactly what they're going to do to take Ponyta out of that discard range from Hitmonlee. And with this Stomp, it's guaranteed to do 10 damage, but they need to flip the heads, and they do, so it will do 40 damage to the Hitmonlee. That is fantastic for the Cinnabar Blazes as they're looking to take game 3. They want that top of the leaderboard. The Rumbles have just pulled their Regirock, but they are going to get the Gliscor online, who only requires 1 energy. As we said earlier, the Regirock with that Exoskeleton takes 20 less damage from attacks that connect with it, as there is that energy onto the Gliscor. It can go for the Acrobatics, and they are going to retreat the Hitmonlee. The Rumbles, they don't want to drop an early point here in this 3rd game. They go with the Acrobatics, guaranteed to do 20. They need to flip a heads. They get 2 coin flips, and they both get a head, so it does an additional 40 because each of those heads does an additional 20 damage, and they're able to take the Ponyta off the board. The Rumbles take the first point here in game 3. This is great for them with those 2 successful coin flips. That is exactly what they needed. If they had only gotten 1, it wouldn't have been enough as the Blazers pull their Rapidash here. Now that Ponyta, they run the risk if they keep it on the board of Gliscor being able to take it out of this match. Whereas the Rapidash does have 100 health, but it requires a second energy for this rising lunge that can do 100 damage if they are successful in flipping heads. Does 40. If they flip their heads, it does an additional 60. The Rumbles pull their second Gliscor, so they're starting to set up the Regirock now, going for another acrobatics. They get a Tails on the first one, they get a heads on the second one, so they get 40 damage onto the Rapidash. This does bring it into discard range there, so they could potentially take it down on the next turn, but the Blazes are going to pull a Houndour, and they still have that second Pokeball in hand. The Houndour immediately coming online. They do use the potion. They want to keep the Rapidash safe. They don't want to drop a second point too quickly. And now it can go for this rising lunge as it gets its second energy. They need to flip the heads to take out the Gliscor though. And they're successful in doing so. They do get a point back on the board. Both sides so far taking 1 point each. 3 will lock up this series as the Blazes with successful rise and lunge. The Rumbles are going to move the Regirock into the active spot. It still requires 3 more energy, but it will buy them time, especially if the Blazes are unsuccessful in flipping heads. They play the Professor's Research they just pulled, they get the second Regirock, they finally get a Skull Fossil, and they've got the Rampardos and Cranidos in hand. But it is also a 3 energy retreat cost for this Regirock. However, we've seen it get set up before, and those Boulder Crushers do 100 damage, extremely powerful. The Blazes do pull a Pokeball. They are going to play that immediately, get in another basic Pokemon. It is the second Houndour. There's another Paldean Taurus in that deck as well, as they get the Houndoom online. That corner does 60 damage, but it does require 2 energy. It can cause the opposing Pokemon to be unable to retreat. Now they need to hit this Rising Lunge. It will do 80 damage if they flip the heads, and they're successful as well. This is great for the Cinnabar Blazes with this Rising Lunge, bringing the Regirock down to only 40 health remaining. The Rumbles do pull a Rocky Helmet though. They do get this immediately onto the Regirock. They want to try and get some damage onto the Rapidash here. And it is the Cranidos coming online. Even with 1 energy on the Cranidos, it still does 50 damage. This is an extremely powerful Pokemon. But the Rumbles really need to think about how they want to do this. The Blazers have an opportunity. They pull their second Houndoom. They could actually retreat the Rapidash, and that Houndoom could guarantee the elimination of the Regirock, but then they have to contend with the Rampardos that will surely be coming online soon. And that is exactly what they're going to do. They're going to retreat the Rapidash. It's only a 1 energy retreat cost, so it can go online in the coming turn. This corner will take out the Regirock. There will be 20 recoil damage onto the Houndoom, but it guarantees that second point for the Cinnabar Blazes. They are 1 point away from locking up this series. However, the Rumbles can move the Rampardos on a line. However, if it takes down an opposing Pokemon, when it does that 130 damage, it takes 50 recoil damage, but only if it eliminates an opposing Pokemon. They do pull the Giant Cape as well. The Rampardos, here it is, that head smash, it's online, it doesn't require any extra energy. They do put the Giant Cape onto it as well. This will take its health up to 170, so if once it gets that recoil damage, it will still have 120 health remaining, which means it can outlast a Rising Lunge from the Rapidash. Do move that second Hitmonlee onto the bench that has 80 health, but here we go, the head smash, 130 damage, the Houndoom wiped off the board. There's that recoil damage onto the Rampardos. We have seen this Grand Underground deck have 2 ties so far this season. The Blazers can move that Rapidash, and this is exactly what they do. They move it into the active spot. If they flip a heads, it will do 100 damage to the Rampardos, but it can cause the tie. They do play that Professor's Research, they get the X-Speed and the Paldean Taurus. There's not many options for the Blazers here. That is the best that they can hope for, but a tie will still keep them in a good position on the leaderboard. They need to flip the heads though. And they flip the tails. This is terrible. They get 40 damage onto the Rampardos. This frees up the Rumbles to immediately go for this head smash. They pull the Skull Fossil, but they're not concerned with that. They will get the 50 recoil damage, but Rampardos will hold on, and the Rumbles will take the win in this best of 3 series, taking down the Rapidash. They were able to hold on thanks to that fortunate coin flip that went their way. This is huge for the reigning champions because they are in 4th place, and next round they're going up against the Turffield Ebonies, whereas for the Blazers, they are in 3rd, and next round will be going up against the Holon Allies, but neither have locked up a spot in Victory Road just yet. So with that said, Nidorinos, thank you so much for watching. Let us know in the comments below what you thought the best card was, and if you enjoyed what you saw, please leave a like, share, subscribe, but more importantly, always remember, send thanks, and I'll see you when you see me.